So, as you may have guessed from the title of this session, it is going to be Report Writing Basics Part 1. Kind of the idea of this is we're going to be looking at it from the perspective of an officer who responded to a call that they're dispatched to. And after they were dispatched to that call, the dispatcher issued them a case report. And so now they've logged into mobile arms here into Report Writer in order to actually fill out their case report and kind of get all those details put in here. So you'll see that I'm logged in here as Officer John McClain here on the case search screen, and this page is always going to default to have your officer's name or the name of whoever is logged in already here in the officer tab. That way it's going to show you every case report that is assigned to you, just so that way you don't have to go digging through a bunch of historical cases just to find whichever one you're digging for there. So this is a brand new case report. You can tell that it's new because of the status right there. What that means is that there have been no modifications made to this case. So the officer has not opened it up yet. They haven't started to enter any information. It is fresh, straight from the dispatcher there. So we'll go ahead and click here on our case report. The very first thing we're going to see is it's going to pop up and ask us to select if this case is a criminal or a non-criminal case. Now, this can confuse some folks because it's not a field that is available there in the ARMS thick client. But I'll make it real simple there. So criminal or non-criminal only determines what fields are going to be required on your case report. So if a case report is marked as non-criminal, you're not going to be required to have a victim, for instance. Whereas if something is criminal, you do have to put in an offense code, a victim, a few other things. And throughout this session, we're going to be taking a look and kind of digging into the required fields here on a mobile case report. So I'm going to go ahead and select this as a criminal case report. All right. And so as that's spinning up there, because it's criminal, we're going to see that there's going to be a handful of required fields along the side there, and we'll be kind of digging into those. Now my dispatcher, because we've got a good working relationship there, I've been able to communicate some details of this case already to them, which has allowed my dispatcher to go ahead and fill in some information like my arrestee, which we'll see a little bit later. All right. So this is going to be the face page of my case report. We'll see across the top here, it's already got my case number and the fact that I marked it as criminal. Now, because this case has not yet been submitted for approval, I do still have the option to click back and forth between criminal and non-criminal. Once a case has been submitted for the first time, you can no longer make that distinction there. Now, right across the top here, we'll see this restrictions section here. This allows you to lock down a case report. So whether it's for an internal investigation, kind of like a chief size only, if it involves juveniles, if it's a sex offense, whatever it may be, someone with the sufficient permissions to view one of those case reports is able to mark this case as one of those categories. So if I'm a brand new rookie officer and I do not have access to any of these three categories, I won't even see this section at the top of my case report. So there's no chance of me clicking that and getting locked out of my own case or anything like that. All right. So like I was talking about the required fields here, you'll see I've got some red dots coming down on some of these tabs. In addition to that, you'll also see I've got some red stars off next to some of my fields here on this face page. So I'm going to want to go through and select each of those fields and make sure I've got content listed in there before I submit it up for approval. So we'll kind of go ahead and come through and set our report title. So we'll go ahead and just say that it's a Broward campus, set our status as active. Coming on down, the next fields I'll point out, date reported. If your case report came from CAD, that's going to be the time that your dispatcher actually clicked add to create a new incident there. So that date reported is going to be automatically filled in. As an officer here, I can go in and change the time that it's reported there. But most importantly is you'll see the occurred from and the occurred to. So these fields are entered by the dispatcher. If the dispatcher doesn't enter them, they'll be filled in automatically for the time when the case is reported or the incident is reported. And then the occurred to will fill in when the last officer leaves the scene and the scene is cleared. Now you are able to modify the occurred from and to times. And it's important that those are accurate because those are the times that your query reporting is going to be pulling from there, is whatever was entered into the occurred from and to. So we'll go ahead and come on down. We'll see that our dispatcher has already filled in the address here, but they failed to put in the rest of our address information. So we can go ahead and put that in, but we'll go ahead and just kind of keep coming down. At the very bottom here, we'll see our dispatch information. So that's going to tell us the CAD incident right there. It's going to tell us the final disposition of that case, what the initial crime and incident code used was. It will also tell you which dispatcher assigned it to you, as well as the time that you received the call or dispatched to it en route, arrived, cleared, all that good stuff. Lastly, you'll also be able to see any of the notes that were entered there by your dispatcher. So the public information is going to be whatever info was put into the public information tab that's going to publish to your media log. And then coming on down here, notes are going to be kind of the private inward-facing police notes that are added in order to aid the officer in writing their case report. So we'll go ahead and kind of continue on. You'll notice that since each of the required fields have now been filled out, there's no longer a red dot next to my face page, which tells me I can go ahead and come on down to incidents. So now that I'm here in incidents, you'll see this big friendly red banner here telling me that this incident code does not belong to the case management module. So what a lot of our agencies will do is they'll actually go in and they'll have a separate crime code list for dispatch and a separate crime code list for case management. That way, your dispatchers don't have to take a call and determine exactly which specific statute is broken according to the reporting party, but instead they can just punch in reported theft here and leave it up to the officer to determine if it's bicycle theft or theft from building, whatever the actual specific crime code may be there. So because this theft does not belong on the case, we can go ahead and select remove from case, which is going to take that crime code off. All right, and so now it's going to tell us that we have no crime codes associated. So we'll go ahead and in the upper right corner, click Add Incident. This will open up here. So now you'll see there's quite a bit of information here on this page. But really, the good news here for you and for your users is all of this information down here is actually going to be for NIBRS reporting. So your officers, if you're an agency that reports NIBRS and you want your officers to fill out some of this information down here, they certainly can go ahead and do that. But if not, the only fields they have to fill in are going to be this first initial incident field here. So because our dispatcher put in reported theft, now we have to enter in actually what type of theft it was. So you'll see as I type in, it autofills and suggests what crime codes I have available here in my system. So I'm going to go ahead and mark a theft from auto. Anything else coming down here, if applicable, I can go ahead and select, but again, that's not going to be required because there's no red star. So I'll hit done on that. And then once that comes up, we'll see that we now have a specific theft code attached to our case here. Now, we'll say that in the process of arresting the perpetrator of this theft from auto, we also found drugs on their person. So we'll go ahead and add in a possession charge here to this case as well. And we'll select our narcotics possession there, hit done. So now we've got both our theft charge and our drug charge. And we'll kind of see how that plays out going through here. Now, because we do have a narcotics possession, there's not going to be a human victim of that. However, we are going to mark the state as victim. And that satisfies the victim requirement here for this incident. Now, we've got a victim here for narcotics possession, but we do not have a victim for this theft from auto. That's why we still have a red dot here on our incident tab. So we'll go ahead and click down to names. And when we click away, we'll see that the red dots on incident names and businesses have already been filled out. So because those are filled out, that tells us that there's already a victim attached to the case, but we know that we still need to add a theft victim. So we'll notice our arrestee is already on here, and we'll kind of circle back around to that here. But for now, we'll go ahead and add our victim. So as with everything in ARMS Mobile, to add in a new field there, it's always going to be in the upper right-hand corner. So we'll go ahead and click on Add Involved Person. So we've got our last name here, and we'll go ahead and enter it in. And because we want to make sure that your data has a high level of integrity, it's not going to allow us to add me a name until we have actually searched for that name first. So we'll go ahead and select Stephen here. Hit next on that. So now that I've selected an existing name in my system, it's going to prompt me to select the involvement, which is how that individual is attached to this case report, as well as the name type. So we'll go ahead and select victim. And then under name type, we'll go ahead and say that they're a commuter student. So once we save that, you'll see that it's now going to add in Stephen Dillard as a victim here on my case report. Now, a couple things. If I were to click on this person details, that's actually going to open up the master name file there for Stephen Dillard. Now, if that's not what I want to do, and instead I want to change him from a commuter student to a fac staff, what I would actually do is hit Edit Linked Info. And from there, I could drop down on the name type and select faculty staff and hit save on that. Now, like I mentioned earlier, our dispatcher was nice enough to go ahead and add in the arrestee. And whenever I brought Hans Gruber back to the station, I went ahead and entered in his arrest there through the FIT client. So you'll see that this arrest is already on here. You can add an arrestee just the same as we just added this victim. And then once that arrestee has been added, you'll have the option to click down here and open up the arrest and add that arrest to it as well. So kind of the last thing that we'll mention here is, say we had a reported vehicle break-in from just a bystander there, and we caught the perpetrator, but we still don't know whose vehicle it was or who the owner of the stolen property is. You can add in an unknown person, or on the flip side, if we know who the owner of the stolen property is, but we don't yet have the perpetrator, you can click this unknown suspect, and that will allow you to put in physical descriptors and other identifying information from eyewitnesses of the account there. We'll go ahead and continue on. If it applied to our case here, on this page, we could add in businesses. So if it was something like a meat slicer was stolen from the Subway on campus, whatever it may be, and so the Subway was the victim, you could add in that business here. Sometimes folks will kind of get a little confused, and if the business is actually the location of the incident, they'll still add in the business here. That's really not going to necessarily be important. You can add the business as a reporting party if need be, but if it's just the location of the incident, we recommend you just add it as the location back here on our face page. So we'll go ahead and continue on down to our properties. Now, because we have got both stolen property from a vehicle as well as drug charges here, we're going to have to add both seized property as well as recovered property. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Add Property. Now, because property is often going to be unique and you're not necessarily going to be seizing the same exact baggie of cocaine more than once, property does allow you to go ahead and directly add new instead of having to search for an existing item like you would in vehicle or names there. All right, so I've got my new property opened up here. We'll notice there's a couple of required fields. So first we'll select our property category. So we'll say we've got our evidence here, and then a property type of drugs and narcotics. Now you'll notice each time I selected a category and a type, the general info fields down here changed. That way, you guys are able to enter in the most applicable information there for that property item. For instance, if it was a stolen bicycle, you wouldn't want to have to put in the NIBR's suspected drug type or the quantity, whatever it may be there. So I've got my evidence, my drugs and narcotics. I'm going to go ahead and come on down. My date entered is correct there. I can open up and select any of these other fields that I want. I will point out here that the last required field is going to be your description there. And then the officer that is logged in and adding the property is going to automatically be filled out there on the intake officer field. So we'll go ahead and hit save on that. So now we've got our drugs and narcotics entered in. Now, some agencies have it where the officer will create a unique property number for each item. Other agencies have it where that property number is automatically assigned. If your agency has them automatically assigned, it would have populated just right there. So I'll go ahead and add in our stolen property. We'll say that he reached in to the car and stole a wallet there. So we can go ahead and add in another piece of property. Click Add New. All right. Now this one, because we don't have a property number auto-assigned, we'll go ahead and put one in there. Coming on down, we'll select our property category, found property, then a property type, and we'll want to scroll down here and select whatever it may be. So just kind of looking through. In fact, we'll actually go ahead and we'll say that they stole a gun out of the car. So you can come down and put in a serial number. You can put in the model number. So if it's a Glock 19, you can put in 19, put in the make. Going on down, you can put in the value of it, where it was found, the date that it was stolen. So because our incident occurred yesterday, we can go ahead and mark that it was stolen then. And then lastly, we can go ahead and put in our description. All right, so now we've got our found property as well as our drugs and narcotics. So we can go ahead and keep on coming down. So now we're here at our vehicles. You can use this vehicles tab really however you want. Because this case involves property stolen from a vehicle, I can add that vehicle there. You can also add in vehicles if the case report is for a traffic stop, a traffic accident, really any way that you would want to record those vehicles there. So I'll go ahead and click on Add Vehicle. Now, just like with master names, it is going to require me to search for a vehicle before going on and actually creating a new one there. So I'll just go ahead and search for one. And we'll see that there is already a vehicle attached here. So we can select that one. And once it's selected, we'll just hit select and add it to our case. Now, the last red dot that we have, the last required field for our criminal case report, is going to be the narrative. So I'll go ahead and click on that. Now you'll notice there's already information here in our synopsis. So that's going to be whatever information that the dispatcher put into the public information field of CAD. So that field is going to usually be more general information. It's not necessarily going to have the specifics of the case, but just kind of the short and sweet blurb so that you know exactly what that case report is about. Coming off to the side here, I'll point out where it says saved, and you'll notice as I start to type that it auto-saves and will continue to save as you type that case report. That way, if you lose internet, lose power, your laptop or your phone battery dies, you'll not lose any of your progress. It'll save exactly wherever you were while you're typing. That way, that helps keep you from wasting any effort when filling out those cases there. A few notes on this narrative page here. Because ARMS Mobile is visible and accessible from a mobile phone, you actually could do this entire case report just from an iPhone there. Now, obviously, typing out an entire narrative on a phone's keyboard is not always going to be the most comfortable thing in the world. So this page is going to be compatible with that voice to text right there built into your phone or tablet, so you can certainly do that. All right, and so that's actually where we're going to be stopping here for case management part 1. Next week, we'll be picking up and kind of going through everything else below the narrative here. So this time, we'll go ahead and open it up to questions and answers. So you'll notice that there's going to be kind of a raise hand there towards the bottom of your page. So you can go ahead and select that and raise your hand if you've got a question there.
Gotta love it when you cover everything so perfectly that nobody has a question.
For sure.
Oh, there we go. Spoke too soon.
Yep. And Eric, you're unmuted there if you want to go ahead and ask.
I had food in my mouth, so I had to wait till I got rid of it.
Fair enough.
I used my hand. Excuse me. Back at the beginning when you did the new case, you popped up a screen that I had never seen that you said something about it has all of the NIBRS fields in it at the bottom.
Yeah, so here on incidents, whenever you add in a crime code, all of this information down here is actually going to be information that imports into your NIBRS reviews. So some agencies may choose to have their officers go ahead and fill this out, or you can, of course, still just fill it in directly on the NIBRS review.
Eric, yours is going to be a little bit different. This is for FBI NIBRS, the basic NIBRS that a lot of states use. Your NIBRS is a little bit different being Oklahoma. They have different requirements and stuff like that, so it wouldn't look exactly like this one.
But the fields are there at the beginning, or at least some of them are, so that they can start the process of getting the right information?
Yeah. So in the incidents tab, you will have some fields in there that will help with that. And I'll also say mixed in with these fields being part of what will import into NIBRs. You can also see if you're still doing UCR summary reporting, there's parts in there, and then also some of these fields will import for Clery as well.
Okay, so a lot of this is going back over into the UCR review report module.
Yeah, some of this will go in there too.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, I do have another question.
Alrighty.
On property.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I can.
I'll pull it up here for you.
Click on the add property. There was a, I think that'll get the field that I.
Or it may be here on this screen.
The property category field up there at the top
Yes, sir.
has been kind of confusing to us because it seemed like it was a general field in order to, you know, provide us specific fields down at the bottom. So as you marked that one, and maybe it was just for you marked that one firearm stolen out of the vehicle, but you marked it as found property and not stolen. But is
Yes,
that because it was checked into, it was stolen and we recovered it?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So in the scenario we were going over there, you know, we were saying that we had already caught the perp there. He still had the stolen property on him, and we found the drugs on him as well.
Okay, so, but if you had chosen the stolen property in this particular field, then it would have changed everything down in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. So instead of having a, well, it would have added in your date stolen and a few other fields there.
One of the other things too to always pay attention to with the property, hit that property category field for me again there, Steven. So you notice how it organizes them all with subcategories. So you have the bold ones, which are your kind of major categories, and then below each of those you have subcategories. You can customize those subcategories. The things to pay attention to are things like evidence and safekeeping, specifically evidence. So if you have a code in there, it doesn't have to say evidence and found property like what Steven has in his. Yours could say anything. But whatever options you create on the setup menu and put in there as evidence, that's what's going to utilize that property for your property room. So when he puts it in as stolen, missing property, stolen property, stolen property, anything like that, that property is not going to appear in your property logs as being in your property room, you know, ready to be checked out, checked in, what have you. But if he switches that from property category to something like evidence, then now this piece of property will register as a piece of property that could appear in a location bin or be available to be checked out. Now, there are some other qualifications. You'll notice the intake information down at the bottom of the screen. If you've been using the 2019 or newer version of ARMS, you'll have those intake fields at the bottom. But otherwise, that first property category field is important when it comes to deciding whether or not you want this to appear as a piece of property in your property room, and you describe kind of what all those codes are and how they function on your setup menu.
Okay. I'm sure it'll get clearer as I look at it more. My problem is I don't enter reports anymore. I just review at the end, but that's my problem. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I am here. You didn't mute me yet.
Not
Glad you
yet.
had another co-host, Eric.
All right. Last call for questions there. All right. Well, we certainly hope that you guys will join us for the rest of our webinar series. We've got these kind of scheduled out going to about mid-June there, so make sure to stay in contact, stay in touch. Of course, if you've got any questions about the topics covered in this session that maybe you don't think of until a little bit later here, absolutely feel free to reach out to our support team, support@arms.com, or 1-800-776-6783. All right, and you guys all have a great rest of your week there. Thank you.